his bed in the living room. I realized what you meant before when you said the slightest shock could prove to be fatal.
Exactly.
The slightest shock. Oh, he's there!
Oh, I must go.
Yes, we wouldn't want anything to happen to him, would we? I was shocked when I heard Mr. Starkweather had included me in his will. I didn't even think he noticed the old me.
Then you must have received two surprises. That you inherited $1 million and then to immediately discover it was being taken away from you.
3, actually. Now you're wealthy again.
Oh, Mr. Starkweather, I was thrilled to be told your grandfather was leaving me even $50,000. With that, I could go to college, like you, and get a good education.
Now you can do anything you want, Nancy. What do you think you want to do?
I don't know. I haven't been thinking about myself much.
Who has been on your mind, Nancy?
Well, I...
Jordan Starkweather, perhaps?
Who told you that?
Cousin Jordan himself, for one. He implied you might even have been willing to kill for it.
Hey, what? How could he say such a thing?
I'm sorry to hurt you, Nancy, but now you see what Jordan's really like. He's only out for himself, and he'll trample anyone who gets in his way.
I guess I knew that. Minerva tried to warn me. I heard him even propose to Miss Collins. She turned him down and later laughed about it with a friend, Miss Van Zandt. I was taking fresh towels to the guest rooms when I heard them talking. If you think Jordan is cold-hearted, Miss Collins is just as bad as he is.
Oh, can you believe it? Those soulful gazes might work on some innocent young thing like that maid Nancy. But Jordan learned soon enough that I was no pushover.
I wish I had been there to see it. It's time Jordan met his match. I could tell Nancy about many of the maids who've worked here before her. But Jordan's playboy days will be over soon enough.
Huh, what do you mean?
Well, up until now, Mr. Starkweather has been giving Jordan, as well as Fiona, Simon, and all the other relatives, a generous allowance. Once Mr. Starkweather passes on, the $50,000 bequest will be the last that they get of Mr. Starkweather's fortune. They'll have to learn what it's like to work for a living.
Huh. Simon's almost out of college. He'll do fine. But the others, they'll go through their money in no time. And then what kind of jobs could they get? Could you see Paula behind the desk of a car rental agency?
Or Jordan driving the cars out of the lot for the customers.
Oh, and what will Fiona do? Sell Mary Kay?
Is there anything I can get for you, Cousin Fiona? A glass of water, perhaps?
No, dear, I'm fine. Mr. Davis, I want you to know that my Jordan couldn't have done. Oh dear, what was done to Uncle Simon? You see, he was with me in my room all evening.
Mrs. Starkweather, you know that can't be true. Jordan himself told us that he was outside for a while, and I saw you in here with Ms. Withers and Mr. Benson.
Oh, that's right. Maybe it was last night he sat with me.
It's okay, maybe it was.
Now I know why Jessica Fletcher never believed any of the suspects on Murder, She Wrote. It's so easy to get confused.
Mrs. Starkweather, please, just concentrate on tonight, okay? Now, think hard. Did you see anything suspicious?
Suspicious. Well, I saw Uncle Simon's body with that horrible thing around his neck. I call that suspicious.
I think Jack means before that.
Before. Let me think. I'm not sure if this is the sort of thing that you mean, but...
Yes.
Well, it was right after we had all been told about the new will and had gone upstairs. I was walking past that secretary's door when I overheard her talking with the housekeeper. They were talking so loudly, so I really couldn't help but overhear.
suppose you're very pleased with yourself, Miss Collins.
Why do you say that?
It all worked out just as you planned.
I don't know what you're talking about.
I think you do. All those magazines you brought from town and left lying around for Mrs. Starkweather to see them, you've done it for months.
What magazines?
Don't play dumb, Miss Collins. All those news magazines and scientific journals, I've seen them. They all had one thing in common. Articles about cloning. I didn't realize it until tonight, but now it's obvious. You're the one who planted the idea in Mr. Starkweather's head to clone himself.
What if I did? There are no laws against sharing ideas, are there?
I'm sure your lawyer friend would say no since you're on this together. That doesn't mean it's right. I think what you're planning to do is hideous.
To be perfectly frank, I couldn't care less what you think. Get out!
Starting to give orders already, are you? I'll leave, but remember this, young woman. You're not the queen bee yet. And you won't be until Mr. Starkweather's name is on that dotted line, assuming that ever happens.
Kathy told me about Mrs. Trent's accusations, that she engineered the cloning business, possibly with my help. Apparently, Fiona Starkweather reported the conversation correctly, which is something of a surprise.
Is it true? Did you and Kathy give grandfather the idea to clone himself?
I don't really think that's relevant to the case at hand, Simon. Even if we did, we weren't breaking any laws. Don't you agree, Mr. Davis?
Sorry, Simon, no laws that I can think of.
Then shouldn't we focus on the law that was broken? I'm referring to the murder, of course.
You're right as usual, Miss Van Zandt. Can you volunteer any information that might help us?
Well, I will tell you this. I was going downstairs to the kitchen to ask Minerva for a pot of coffee. It was apparent that Kathy and I would be staying up late, and I thought that the caffeine might help us stay awake. Minerva wasn't there, but Rufus was. I heard him talking to Mrs. Starkweather. Their conversation was very peculiar.
Too, you won't see?
Goodness, no! Put that away!
Oh, I guess I better before it hurts somebody, or even kills them.
That's a horrible thought!
Ain't it though? I get those sometimes. Do you? I see you still got your poison pills.
Did you tell us this isn't a poison? It's a stimulant. You just have to be careful not to take too many.
Well, you had a lot more in the bottle when I saw you upstairs. I hope you ain't gone and done an overdose. I do believe I can figure out how to do that mouth-to-mouth stuff, though.
If you bring those lips any closer, I'll snatch that ass out of your hands and I'll chop them off.
Just trying to help you, Starkweather.
Well, don't! There is some fates worse than death. Besides, I assure you I am fine. I spilled some pills earlier in the living room, and I wasn't able to retrieve them all.
Yeah, was there something you needed back in the kitchen?
Oh, I just came down to see if Minerva had any of those delicious Horace Devores left.
Well, I can look for you if you want.
No, thank you. I seem to have lost my appetite.
Mr. Starkweather's meals? Well, what do you want to know about?
Oh, just little things. Who did he dine with? Did he eat the same things as everybody else?
Well, he was on a very restricted diet, low salt, low fat, so I had to prepare his meals simply. Why do you want to know about the food? You trying to say there's something wrong with my cooking?
No, Minerva. Your cooking is wonderful. I especially like that very delicious leg of lamb you served earlier.
Why, thank you. I've often been told I have terrific legs. So what's the problem?
Forget it. I think you told me what I need to know. Changing the subject. Freudian slip. Do you remember when everybody came into the kitchen when the circuit breaker tripped? And before I got there, I mean.
Let me see. The blackout. Well, I was in the kitchen preparing the supplies for breakfast. When it went dark, it took me a second to get that candle Miss Trent gave me from my pocket and light it.
Minerva? Nancy? Is everyone all right?
Well, I'm here and I'm just fine. Saw the lights go out when I was outside.
I was in my room when everything went dark. What happened?
Looks like old Bensonhurst forgot to pay the light bill.
Keep that up and I'll forget to pay your wages.
What blazes is going on in here?
Apparently, the storm knocked out all the electricity. You see, my candles did come in handy after all.
Well, excuse me. Remind me to give you a gold star later. Bensonhurst, can't you get the electricity back on?
Hey, that's what I came to find out. Bensonhurst?
Circuit breaker is right over here.
All right.
I hope they hurry. I don't like the dark.
Oh, hell. Is that quick enough for you? I'll get back to my chore.
What did that idiot come inside for? He drank water all over my clean clothes.
Why Mrs. Starkweather doesn't fire him, I'll never know.
Jack, any luck?
Well, it was there all right. It should be enough to pinpoint the murderer, but I really wish I had more. It could take weeks to get the results back. If the will is probated and the killer gets his or her inheritance before we get the results back, they could disappear for good. You can buy a new identity easily enough for $1 million or more. Just wish there was some way I could get the guilty party tonight.
I was hoping we'd learn more from the questioning.
Yeah, me too, but they were so busy trying to make everybody else look guilty, they didn't say much about themselves. And you know, Simon, when you're in my line of work, sometimes the slightest clue can just give you a little... Hey, Simon, move your foot.
What is it?
Down here on the floor, it's... Yeah. What they were doing at the time was so insignificant, I didn't notice it. Son, I think I know who murdered your grandfather.
Who?
I'll tell you and everybody else. Go get Bensonhurst and bring them all down here.
Yes, sir.
Minerva sent me in here to see if you like hot coffee.
Never mind that. Go upstairs and tell everyone up there to come down here on the double.
Oui, sir.
I don't think the police chief will mind if I use this plastic sandwich baggie to collect evidence.
So, what's this about?
Say so beautiful if I never get seen.
Hey,
on a TV show.
Can we take a seat, please? Just take a seat. It's okay. Thank you for coming.
Mr. Davis, it's either very late or very early, depending on the way you want to look. Well, if no one else is going to ask, why would the Sanford you all together at this hour?
It has been a long night, hasn't it? I know I'm pretty tired. But I thought you would all rest easy in knowing who murdered Simon Starkweather.
You mean you've discovered who killed Great Uncle Simon?
I'm pretty sure I have, as I'm going to show you in the next few minutes.
I'm amazed, Jack. How did you figure it out?
Well, first I had to find the answer to a question that had bothered me since the beginning. It would have been so easy to make it look like Mr. Starkweather's death had been by natural causes, something Jordan suggested to Ms. Withers earlier tonight. For example, Mrs. Starkweather could have given Mr. Starkweather some of those digitalis pills. So could Jordan. So could any of you who've known that she had spilled them under the sofa. Also, Miss Withers probably thought about using that hypodermic needle to inject an air bubble in Mr. Starkweather's bloodstream. Again, anybody else could have snuck into your room, got the needle, and done the same thing yourselves. Also, it's possible some of you thought about frightening the old man.